Commentary on Heart of the Gita, Chapter 1. The Sanskrit words Bhagavad Gita means Song of God, or more precisely, Song of the Opulent One. God is, of course, the truly opulent one, for he possesses all opulences in full. This has been analyzed exhaustively by the great sage Parasara Muni, who categorizes all opulences into 6 divisions: wealth, fame, beauty, knowledge, strength, and renunciation. Bhagavad Gita is, therefore, a song of God's opulence, sung by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure. It is a song of loving affection to God's devotee, whom he encourages to swim in the nectarian ocean of love. Many commentators have seen in the Bhagavad Gita an allegory in which Arjuna is the archetypal living being, the 5 Pandava brothers, the 5 senses, the material body, battlefield, and life itself, the contest. Lord Krishna is the divine voice within each of us, asking us to surrender to him and to become his instrument in life's great battle. In return, he promises to give us complete protection. Srila Prabhupada A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, our beloved spiritual master and the founder Acharya of the Hare Krishna movement in the West, used to argue against those who would thus interpret Bhagavad Gita allegorically and deny the historicity and reality of Krishna. Apparently opposing views, however, need not be mutually exclusive. There is truth on both sides, the literal and allegorical. Such opposites are reconciled on the path of Lord Chaitanya's sublime philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, simultaneous oneness and difference. Lord Chaitanya says that in the Absolute all contradictions are resolved. God is so great that while doing one thing, he accomplishes many others. Krishna certainly appeared on this earth to drive Arjuna's chariot at Kurukshetra 5,000 years ago, but he did so in such a way as to drive home the fact that he appears to all souls who want him, in every age, to guide them through the battle of life. Thus, both the literal and the allegorical are true and wonderful. The allegorical, however, makes the Gita alive and meaningful to everyone in all times and cultures. Bhagavad Gita does not belong to India or Hinduism or some ancient Eastern culture, but to the world. When at Walden Pond, Henry David Thoreau said, "In the morning, I bathe my intellect daily in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial." Ralph Waldo Emerson further noted, I owed a magnificent day to the Bhagavad Gita. It was the first of books. It was as if an empire spoke to us, nothing small or unworthy, but large, serene, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise us. Such statements could not have been made had there been no meaning beyond the historical event of 5,000 years past. Such deeper meanings, however, do not negate or minimize the fact that Arjuna was an actual person, Lord Krishna, his dearmost friend, and Kurukshetra, a real battlefield, where millions of soldiers lost their lives. Above that, no interpretation should ever obscure the fact that Lord Krishna is a person, indeed the supreme person. Bhagavad Gita is perhaps the greatest of spiritual classics. Although it has come to us by way of India, and is often called the New Testament of Hinduism, it belongs to all sincere seekers of the truth, regardless of religious tradition. All sincere devotees of the Lord, be they Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, or whatever, can benefit equally. Truly, Bhagavad Gita is not a sectarian gospel. It is the synthesis of all Vedic literatures and gives us the essence of all scriptures. In Krishna's words, abandon all kinds of pious speculation. Surrender to me. Give me your adoration. Do not fear. I give my loving benefaction to deliver you from all sinful reaction. True surrender to God necessitates abandoning all mental speculation, religious formalism, and ritualism. Certainly, this total submission to the will of God is the essence of all religion, the basic instruction of all holy teachers. Because Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all religion, it belongs to all and is meant for the benefit of all. Let us listen carefully to the words of that ancient dialogue, for they are still vibrating for our enlightenment. We are just beginning to realize the truth that no religion can stand alone. As we all share common humanity, we also share a common divinity as sons of the one Almighty Father. In the real sense, there is only one religion. A man can either be religious or irreligious, godly or ungodly. A man may either surrender to God and recognize that everything is his property, or he may live in a world of illusion, imagining himself to be the proprietor of all he surveys. He can either develop his love of God through devotional service or identify himself with a material body and live a life of temporary sense gratification. By developing love of God, one utilizes his life wisely and cultivates spiritual awareness. On the other hand, by accepting illusion as reality, one may enjoy sense pleasures for a season, eating, drinking, and making merry, yet he has to suffer the repetitious cycle of material existence, birth and death. Each chapter of the Gita emphasizes a particular yoga or discipline. Yoga is the Sanskrit word for living, vital religion. Like the Latin word religio, meaning to bind back, the word yoga means to link up. Each individual consciousness is actually part of the one supreme consciousness, Lord Krishna. But influenced by ignorance, the individual consciousness, which was originally pure and united with the Supreme, becomes covered by Maya, the illusion of separateness. The word Maya literally means what is not. At present, we are covered by what is not, namely, the illusion of separation from God. We therefore have to link up again and unite again with the absolute truth. Yoga is the means. There may be many different types of yoga, but they are all directed to the same point, surrendering to Krishna or uniting with the Absolute. I have entitled the first chapter The Way of Despair. This may be a little surprising. One might wonder what despair has to do with spirituality, but it is in fact, however, that despair can serve as a catalyst to spiritual life. This is apparent when we look at Arjuna's situation. Seeing kinsmen prepared for a terrible bout, Arjuna, overcome with compassion, cried out, "My limbs all feel heavy, my mouth has gone dry, my body is trembling, my hair is standing high, my mind is unsteady, my heart is unwilling to engage in the sin of fraternal killing." We can easily sympathize with Arjuna's confusion and bewilderment. Everyone in the material world is more or less confused and empty. Some people know it, and some do not. To know it, however, is the beginning of wisdom and the purpose of education. More than 2,000 years ago, Socrates said, "I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance." Few men have been so wise. As this chapter opens, the blind king Dhritarashtra asks his secretary Sanjaya for a report on the happenings at Kurukshetra, the ancient pilgrimage site chosen for battle. There were, of course, two contending parties at Kurukshetra. On the one side stood Lord Krishna and his devotees, the 5 Pandava brothers and their allies, and on the other side stood the ruling king Dhritarashtra, his heir apparent Duryodhana, and all their allies, including most of the materialistic kings of the ancient world. Numerically and materially considered, it was hardly a contest. The Pandavas were disadvantaged in every way. What took place at Kurukshetra 5,000 years ago is taking place today. Each of us is faced with choosing sides, either God's or the world's. Joshua's challenge, "Choose ye this day whom ye will serve," echoes down the corridors of time. We may choose to have the Lord himself as our chariot driver, guiding our life's destiny, or we may side against him. Even if we think that God or Krishna is not personally present today as he was at Kurukshetra, we must understand that he is nonetheless present in his expansions as the supersoul within and the spiritual master without. If we accept the Guru and Krishna as the drivers of our life, the outcome of the battle is sure. O Arjuna, declare it boldly and publish, "My pure devotee will never, never perish." Unfortunately, King Dhritarashtra was blind both physically and spiritually. His anxiety over the outcome of the battle was indicative of his spiritual blindness, for the outcome was actually certain, with Krishna by Arjuna's side. Because the battle was fought in a holy place under the direct supervision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, there was no question of the outcome. Krishna is always accompanied by Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. By making Krishna his enemy, Dhritarashtra sealed his doom. Certainly God or Krishna is no one's enemy. He is equal to all. But if, out of envy, we make him to be our enemy, he kindly reciprocates appropriately. If we become his unalloyed devotee, however, and sanctify our bodies by surrendering to him, we receive his transcendental protection. O Arjuna, surrender to me utterly. By my grace, you'll enjoy peace, wealth, and victory. There is no other solution. On the battlefield, Arjuna sees teachers, relatives, and friends in the enemy's ranks. Even if Arjuna wins, he loses, for loved ones will be lost. He is divided against himself. And indeed, that is the human situation. In the battle of life, we are always divided against ourselves, for everything is interconnected and part of one supreme whole. Furthermore, everything is a manifestation of our various desires, and on all sides we see conflicting desires. On the material platform, desires are endless and insatiable. There is no perfect course of action that will satisfy all our desires. Materially speaking, there is no solution to our problems. I'm going to read that paragraph again. And indeed, there is no solution. We are divided against ourselves. This is the human situation. In the battle of life, we are always divided against ourselves, for everything is interconnected and part of one supreme whole. Furthermore, everything is a manifestation of our various desires, and on all sides we see conflicting desires. On the material platform, desires are endless and insatiable. There is no perfect course of action that will satisfy all our desires. Materially speaking, there is no solution to our problems. As long as Arjuna considered the battle from his own personal point of view, he could do nothing better than throw down his weapons and refuse to fight. It is only when Krishna, the Supreme Lord, begins to advise Arjuna that the real solution to his problem becomes clear. What was demanded of Arjuna and what is demanded of us is to fight. In life's contest, there is no running from the battlefield, no turning from life's challenges. Herein lies the universal nature and appeal of the Gita. Arjuna's problem is everyone's problem. We are all asked to give up the world and to strive against instincts, passions, and desires. The odds look hopeless, as if we are alone in a desert or surrounded by dense darkness. Existential loneliness and despair highlight one of the great demands of spiritual life. To gain spiritual victory, we must give up the world and all the promises of the gross senses. When we forsake the world, it first appears that we are losing everything. For this reason, turning from the world is called renunciation. Until the bliss of spiritual life manifests, we may wonder, what am I gaining? The torment of turning from material pleasures while not yet relishing spiritual joy is experienced in all religious traditions. St. John of the Cross very aptly describes this dilemma as the dark night of the soul. Arjuna himself asked the Lord Krishna if the fate of the unsuccessful yogi who neither enjoys the world nor attains the spiritual goal of paradise. And Krishna kindly replies, and most assuredly reminds him, one who does good, noble Arjuna, my friend, need never fear death, nor an unhappy end. Enjoyment of the material world is at best illusory and temporary. Everyone in this world is frustrated in his attempt to enjoy himself to his heart's content. Like Arjuna at the beginning of the battle, we are all ignorant of our spiritual identity. We seek bodily happiness, but are ultimately frustrated. Out of frustration, we want to quit the battle. On the human level, there is no answer to the fourfold problems of existence, birth, death, old age, and disease. As long as we remain on the mundane platform, identifying ourselves with the material body, there can be no solution. All we can do is throw down our weapons, physical, mental, or psychic, and say with Arjuna, I will not fight. Arjuna threw down his weapons and refused to fight because he lacked sufficient knowledge and motivation. He did not understand the spiritual nature of the fight until Krishna lifted him from the material platform and told him, fight for me. In thus exhorting Arjuna to fight, the Lord speaks to us all. In lifting Arjuna out of the ignorance of bodily identification, the Lord lifts us out as well. Let us listen most attentively and submissively to this divine dialogue, meant for our progressive eternal enlightenment. Ah.